Hey everybody, welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. We're talking before it's casual. It's what happens. I'm Alec Cabrona, that's Matt Morrison. It's Hump Day, Week 3 on the Casual Sports Podcast on YSN Live. Thank you all for the great support we've seen so far. Had a ton of viewership yesterday, and we're really so grateful for the support that we've had going on early in the show. We're going to continue pushing it. So let's get into what we're talking about here today. We got Bengals versus Steelers on the slate, the Bears and the Browns, the Saints versus the Patriots, the Buccaneers versus the Rams, the Packers and 49ers from Sunday Night Football. In college football, Auburn's near collapse. UCLA and Stanford was a beautiful game and came down to the wire. Michigan State nearly upset by the Cornhuskers. OK State and K-State gave us a great early season Big 12 matchup and some big headlines. Sherman to the Buccaneers. Cardinals winners to 17 straight and the second wild card spot. We'll talk about that and more on today's show. Let's get into it. Question of the day from Tuesday, September 28th. Who holds the career NFL record for highest yards per catch average? The answer to that one, Homer Jones. Your question of the day for today, September 29th, it's Wednesday. Which NFL receiver is a third-generation NFL player? Your options, Brandon Cooks, Gerald Everett, Cooper Kupp, Josh Reynolds, or Robert Woods. So leave your options down in our comment section. We can either tell you if you get them right. We have enough people comment. I can tell you if you get it right now. We'll just go right into tomorrow's question tomorrow, or you can just tune in tomorrow to see if you get it right here. As Matt, let's start this show off. We're going to talk about your team here first and the utter failure that was the other night. And you talk about the Steelers and what was their biggest struggle last season and why did they fail coming down the stretch in those last 5-6 games. They made Big Ben throw it too many times. They made him throw it 58 times this week.
That's the first wrong they did right there.
I mean, Najee Harris, yes, he's not picking it up on the ground, but this is a team we know has 4 running backs back there. Najee Harris is the only guy getting carries. You look at any other team in the league, I mean, even like the Browns, they know they have more than one guy that can run on the ground. They have 2 guys, and sometimes they'll bring in a 3rd or 4th guy. You have to get it to more guys in your offense. If you just leave the one guy out there...
Benny Snell can go, and I mean, who's that other guy that I picked up? McFarland.
Right. This is a team that has options, and they're not using anything.
No.
I get they want to stick with Najee, and they want to give this rookie some experience in this season and give him some good reps. But at the moment, I think he needs help. I think he needs to see another running back on this team that has been there a little bit longer, kind of lead by example. Show this guy the ropes here in the NFL. It's so hard sometimes for a rookie running back just to come in and explode immediately. You saw it from Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year and a little bit from DeAndre Swift. But other than that, you saw a lot of running backs, rookies. I think Jonathan Taylor up there, they kind of got off to a slow start until they finally found their rhythm later in the season and had 1 or 2 good games. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now for Harris. I mean, he's doing okay. I mean, he'll take 14 carries, 40 yards. Yeah. Maybe. Obviously, you want that to be closer to probably 80 yards, 60 yards, something up there, but it's not bad for him, but they need a lot more out of this offense. I mean, and the problem here, secondary, if Najee Harris is going to be the only guy you run, you have to have somebody else that can catch the ball. He caught it 14 times again. Najee Harris is the number 1 wide receiver for the Steelers through the first 3 weeks, and he had 102 receiving yards in this game. I mean, Claypool was right there with 96, so Claypool did his job, but Juju stunk. Ray McCloud had more yards than Juju. Pat Freiermuth from Penn State, I mean, he's a red zone target. They went to him in the red zone. He got the touchdown. He also had a crucial drop on one of those drives, too, that probably could have ended in another touchdown for your
James
squad.
Washington, come on. The guy's made some incredible catches. Go to him more. The guy has threatened trade because you haven't gone to him. And if you lose him, you're pretty dumb because he's a threat.
He is. He's a huge threat for this squad. And Eric Ebron, I mean, he's got hands of butter, man. It just goes right through. He's a blocking tight end through and through. He's not a great one. Just let him do that. He can't catch the ball, and I think it's clear, and I don't know why the offense goes to him, because I think the defense is purposely leaving him open at this point. It's like, oh, cool, they're just giving us a free guy who's not going to catch the ball out there. Yeah. Let's guard everybody else, because you don't have to guard Ebron. He doesn't catch it. Even when he does, he doesn't do anything with it.
No.
I mean, this was an overall poor game from the Steelers offensively. The defense, I think, was okay. They held up a good fourth quarter. Your offense was just too far behind. They had no rhythm. They couldn't execute coming down the stretch. They got a field goal, but you can't go for field goals in the fourth quarter when you've scored 7 points in the entire game and you're down by, at that point, 17 points. You need a field goal at some point. Don't make it your first score.
No.
It's one of those things. We're looking at Steelers offense here, and it frankly sucked. I mean, and on the other side, Joe Burrow didn't have to do anything. 14 of 18 for him, 172 yards and 3 touchdowns. He threw a pick. It's whatever. You're going to throw a pick sometimes or make a turnover against the Steelers defense. They have a great defense and great corners and great linebackers.
They do.
And with the pressure they can put you under, you're going to throw a pick every now and then, especially against a defense like this. So I think you erase the interception from that. It's like, you know what? It's the Steelers defense. I'll take an interception against them. But you look, Joe Mixon, he's been the bell cow all season right now for the Bengals. He has found his rhythm. It's a guy we've kind of been slowly talking about more and more.
Yes.
Potentially the leading rusher in the league this season, Joe Mixon. 18 carries, 90 yards for him. I mean, Derrick Henry, I think, is still ahead in that race, but I think Mixon's up there in top 10 at least.
Mixon's got to be up there. He has to be up there.
Wide receivers to them didn't have to do much because your offense just gave them great field position every time.
Yeah.
Not a ton of yardage, but they were able to rack up 24 points through 3 quarters and then just, took their foot off. I mean, Jamar Chase, though, number 1 wide receiver again for this team. 65 yards and 2 touchdowns for him, 1 touchdown for Tyler Boyd. This Bengals squad, they're looking good. I mean, then you go, Logan Wilson had 2 interceptions on the day with six tackles. I mean, this Bengals squad right now, yes, they looked bad against the Bears. That's a bad game to look back on. 17-20 loss to the Bears.
They definitely put that behind them and came out, and just played basic football.
This was a different Bengals team than I think we've seen the first 2 weeks. Obviously, the Vikings was a game that, if you look at this game against the Steelers, they probably should have done better. But you look at the offense right now, 27 points in week 1, 17 in week 2, 24 in week 3. This is an offense that can score the ball pretty consistently. Their defense is the question mark, and they played well against the Steelers, but we'll have to see if they can continue that. They have a great game coming up next week. They got the Jaguars. It's in Cincinnati, their second home game of the season, and it's Thursday night. So we'll preview that game a little bit tomorrow.
We will.
Joe Burrow versus Urban Meyer, part 2.
That'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting for sure. And after that, they got the Packers, which I think will be a difficult game for them. Yeah. But I think it's one that they can look at and potentially win. Then they got the Lions after that. So I think this is a good schedule right now coming up for the Bengals, and they need to be able to put something up in these few games and solidify that first or second place right along with the Browns and the Ravens. I mean, you look right now at the AFC North, it is going to be wide open for the first 5-6 weeks. After that, though, it might start to close rapidly. With all it takes right now is one of these teams to get hot and stay hot, and they can pull ahead in this division just based on the fact that all these teams are fantastic. I mean, we're talking about potentially the best division in football right now in terms of all of these teams look like, 1, they can make it to the playoffs, and 2, can make it to a conference championship game, if not the Super Bowl. And upcoming here, Steelers, you got the Broncos this weekend.
This is a tough schedule, okay? This is the worst schedule in the NFL. It's the hardest one.
I don't think it is.
It's ranked the hardest.
I didn't think it was.
I think it was number 1. It's up there at least.
Yeah, I think it was top 10. I don't think it was number 1.
I don't know, but it's a tough schedule. I mean, coming up, the Broncos, they're undefeated. I know they beat the worst teams, but they beat the Jets and then they. But
you know what? It's been an impressive looking squad so far.
They have.
This is a Broncos team that can come into Pittsburgh and pull it off.
Oh, they can. Pittsburgh's got to come in 100%. And Denver, they lost Judy, and now Hamler's out too. So, but.
Oh, pardon me. This weekend's the Packers.
Oh yeah, this weekend's the Packers. My bad. Packers. Well, dear God, this is a whole situation now.
Yeah, completely different in Green Bay.
Yeah, everybody's saying, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers, they suck." No, Aaron Rodgers is back and he's playing.
We haven't lost these last 2 games for him, and he has been off the charts. He's been fantastic for him. Yeah. That first game, I think, a fluke. There was the offseason drama came in there, may not have been exactly happy, whatever.
Yeah.
I think after
Now
the criticism
he's
he got first game, he was like, hold on, this isn't me.
Yeah.
Let's move this around. Let's get back to what we do. Let's get into this. Let's make my free agency stock go way up, or my trade value go way up here. Because I think a lot of people look at Aaron Rodgers and they go, I don't want that guy on my team. He's old.
Yeah.
If he can show that, hey, I'm still an MVP caliber guy after winning it last year, if I can at least stay in the race for 2 years now, that free agency could go up. Trade value, though, could also go up.
Absolutely.
And with a guy that's got a big contract, you need that all to go high.
Yeah, you do. Pittsburgh, I mean, they should be getting Watt back soon. I mean, he went from, down to game. It was a game decision, last week to him being out. So it might come down to that game time this time, too. But I say you got to get him back. I mean, you got to get Bush going. You got to get that defense going because that's the only way you're going to, get any power to start. And we've seen that before, especially against the Packers. Their offense, yes, get Harris going, but bring in your other running backs, too. Don't make Ben throw that ball, 58 times?
That's ridiculous.
No.
I know Najee Harris couldn't get it going on the ground.
Yeah.
See if somebody else can. I mean, we've seen it with Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey should be getting 80 carries a game, basically, but he hasn't been able to get it going. So they turned to the number 2 guy, and he has been performing. Yeah. Chuba Hubbard has been fantastic going behind McCaffrey, who I think is dealing with an injury, but it doesn't matter. He's come in when Christian McCaffrey, their main guy, hasn't been able to consistently get it done. Yeah. And it's been successful for their offense. You got to change things up right now if you're the Steelers, because 58 times for Big Ben is a complete and utter failure.
Listen, this whole past week I'm saying, we need to drop Ben, it's over. But, when you throw it that much, it's going to look that bad.
He's not a quarterback who throws it 58 times. No. He's a 35, 40 guy maybe. I would have no problem letting Ben throw it 35, 40 times a game.
Yeah.
You cannot get him up over 40 or 50.
No,
we're getting up near 60s now, and we've only seen that from a few quarterbacks on the season so far, Dak and Tom Brady being 2 of them. And potentially the only 2.
He can't do it anymore. He's old.
Okay? He's never been able to throw it that many times in a single game. No quarterback can. To be able to do it that much.
Especially at his age.
Right.
And that just makes it worse. The guy's almost 4 years old. I get Brady still playing, but Brady's... We all know
GOAT.
He's a
built
different level. Yeah.
You also look at how much he spends into his own body. It's like LeBron James as well. Those guys can play a long time because they've invested millions into their own body. Look at Big Ben. He looks like a guy that lives in Pittsburgh.
Think of the last time they won a Super Bowl. I know they had an outstanding defense. It was superb. James Harrison and Polamalu. But look at their offense. Who was their running back? You had Willie Parker, who was, got the job done. Longest run in Super Bowl history. And then go back to 2005 when they won the Super Bowl. They had the bus. They had Jerome Bettis. So if you go back to that run game, you rely on that run game more. They could be successful. You gotta get that solid running back.
I feel like all the hype in the offseason is on quarterbacks, and if you have the best quarterback, you win the game. It really isn't if you have the best quarterback, you need a good quarterback. Yeah. But if you don't have a run game, you won't win.
Or an offensive line, and that offensive line. Come on, man.
Okay, there was a lot of times in that game Big Ben was sitting there and couldn't get a wide receiver open.
I know.
The wide receiver core for the Steelers sucks.
There's that, too. But the offensive line, that's right. I remember I was ranting about this, too. This was probably their best game. They got to keep that up. My bad on that. They literally gave Ben... There was that one play, they gave Ben all the time in the world, and he still got sacked.
Big Ben's fallen over in the backfield without anyone being within 5 feet of him.
Receivers got to get open quick. Come on, Juju. Come on.
They're getting to the point. It almost feels like the Steelers are doing too much on offense.
Yeah.
Right? They're opening this playbook up. It almost seems too much. At this point in the season, with the way they have struggled on offense, get back to basics here. Inside zone runs. Yeah. Do that. Hit some slants around. You have some quick freaking wide receivers. Yeah.
Juju, Claypool,
Ray McLeod.
Ray
is
McLeod.
A bullet, man.
Oh, he is.
James Washington's got speed. Juju's got speed. Claypool's got size. If you throw it to Claypool over the middle, find him. There are so many guys in this offense that can bust a hole in, open space. This is a team that tried to go horizontal a lot. You have to push it down the field, but you have to keep it balanced. You can't keep running, the 5-yard out routes because defense breaks on those.
They do.
Go with the zig route, fake it like you're going outside, then cut it right back in. Or do the opposite, cut it in, then go outside. You have to do something to change what the defense is seeing right off the bat.
They do.
And then once you can open it up underneath, then you go go medium routes. Then once the defense is bringing it back, then you bring it back in. You go short,
back and forth,
bring that defense, and then once you get them lulling them to sleep, you run the ball. You can, if you dominate the 10 yards from the line of scrimmage to the first down marker, if you can dominate that area, the entire field opens up.
Yeah.
And yes, that is the hardest area on the field to dominate, but the best teams do it. And the best teams can do it consistently, and the best teams get made fun of for doing that. Look at the Saints or the Patriots. They were both extremely successful with, look at the Patriots, number one. With wide receivers who did not fit the build of an NFL wide receiver. They didn't fit the speed of an NFL wide receiver. The one played quarterback at Kent State, and it didn't matter because the play calling and the play design and the great quarterback play and the system it was designed to produce. They got made fun of for running, 5-yard slant routes every play.
They only focused,
or in routes. They focused on those 10 yards.
Yeah. 10 yards.
And they dominated 10 yards.
They don't look down the field. They go 10 yards at a time. 10 yards at a time.
What did they get them? 6
Super Bowls. 6 Super Bowls. Just 10 yards at a time. It may sound ridiculous.
Have they ever had a superstar running back with the Patriots?
No.
With Tom Brady? They had some great wide receivers when he was there. Randy Moss was there for a little bit.
Burris, I think.
Yeah, they've had some great wide receivers. Not consistently. Yes, he had Gronk, who was the best tight end in football for a good part of time.
Because of that Patriots offense.
Because of the offense that he was designed to run. He was a fast tight end with a huge size. And all the wide receivers were running these little 5-yard routes, and the defense has to close in on it. And he was able just to go over the top. And they found Gronk so many times for 100 for what was it? 90 touchdowns through the career in New England. This gets down to fundamental football. Dominate the 10 yards, and the rest of the field opens up for you. And we're going on a long time here about the Steelers, but this is an offense that is struggling extremely bad. But they have been successful getting the ball within those first few yards of the offensive line when it comes to those quick out routes. They just need to switch it up a little bit more. Not have Ben throw this 58 times unless those are all going to be swing passes, screens. They just have to push the ball just a little bit downfield. We're not talking, have Big Ben launch 30-yard bombs, 40 yards, 50 yards, busting his shoulder up trying to throw it down. This is a guy, 2 years ago, came off an shoulder surgery? Yeah. And that's just 2 seasons ago? Or 2, 3?
Yeah, 2 seasons ago.
Yeah. So this is a guy who probably shouldn't be throwing it 58 times.
No.
You want to preserve that shoulder for the late stages of the season and not bust him throwing it 60 times a game against the Bengals.
No. Yeah, and honestly, receivers do not matter at all. They really don't. We go back with the Patriots. They had, what was that one guy? Chris Hogan. You remember Chris Hogan? The guy played lacrosse at Penn State, and he went undrafted. He transferred to a small college and then went undrafted, and they picked him up. I think he played for Buffalo for a little bit, and then New England saw him and saw the potential and picked him up, and he was outstanding. I don't know. Right. He was in Super Bowls with them. I don't know where he is now, but Danny Amendola.
He's a great route runner, and you give him that, but he is by no means a quick guy who's going to burn anybody down the sideline.
No.
Yeah, he's still playing. Edelman was mad at him. Edelman, at a press conference the other day, was like, yeah, you know what? Or I think it was on a podcast he was on. He's like, Amendola told me that we were going to go out together and we were going to retire. So a few years ago when I was like, hey, I'm going to retire, he's like, oh, have fun. I was like, you SOB. and here Amendola is leading the NFL and wide receivers this week.
Yeah, for Houston.
Yeah. But let's move off the Steelers here. We burned 20 minutes already on it. Okay. We got to get to a bunch of other games here. Next up, Bears, Browns. I think we keep this one short. The offensive line for Chicago sucks. The defense for the Browns played pretty darn good because that offensive line was that terrible. Justin Fields did what he could. I think you look at you get rid of the 20 incompletions because he was going up with 0 time to throw that ball. You look at his completion, 6 for 68 yards. You take that. You'd love to not have him get sacked, 9, 12 times? whatever it was. I mean, David Montgomery couldn't run the football behind the line. He was at 10 carries, 34 yards, which wasn't bad, but you need more. I mean, they obviously couldn't get it to their wide receivers. They didn't have time. On the other side, Baker really didn't have to do much. I mean, this was a dominant game for this team. But you look at Baker, 19 to 31, 246 yards, perfect game for him.
This
one
is
touchdown.
I'm not gonna go back too much on it, but this is the performance Ben needs to have right here. 31 times, 246 yards. Like, I know he has Odell and Njoku, but
Njoku didn't have a catch. Number 2 wide receiver was Kareem. Number 3 was Donovan. Number 4 Rashad Higgins. Austin Hooper 5th. Demetric Felton 6th or 7th.
The big name is Odell.
Yeah, and he only had to catch it 5 times, got 77 yards. And you look at the rush game here, Nick Chubb, 22 carries, 84 yards. You know what? From this game, I'll take 3.8 yards per carry. Yes, he'd like a little bit more. But when Kareem Hunt came in and broke off the big plays, 10 carries, 81 yards for him and a touchdown. He broke off the big ones. Chubb was the bell cow. He was punching that defense and, putting them back on the heels and bruising them up so that when Kareem Hunt came in with the electric speed and explosiveness that he has, that he was able to take it in for the score.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at two offensive touchdowns here, the catch by Hooper for the touchdown, and obviously the run-in from Kareem. This was a game that was led by their defense, and that helped a lot. And I think one thing you look at this game, they have to score more once they're inside that 50, once they're on the plus side of the field. 4 field goals for Chase McLaughlin for the Browns. He got 14 points in this game alone. And you look at that, coming down in more games, especially against, give credit to Chicago's defense. It's a really good defense. They ranked, I think, top 10 in the league last year and the year before. So this is not a pushover defense. But they don't have an offense that can compete with them. We've seen it with the Bears time and time again, not having an offense. So the defense collapses after the second half. Yep. And Browns have to score more on offense and not with field goals. So I don't think we'll go too much in this one. Browns coming up this weekend. Have the Vikings in Minnesota before going out to LA to take on the Chargers. I think they like these next 2 weeks coming for the Browns. The Vikings have been playing it close so far in the season, and they're 1-2, but they picked up the win against the Seahawks. Their 2 losses were close.
Yeah. Oh, very close.
Browns have been in close games as well. You look on besides the Bears game, it was a 10-point game against the Texans and a 4-point loss against the Chiefs. These have been close games so far. That Vikings matchup is, I think, a good one to look at and say, hey, this is a team that's been tough all season. Don't look at that 1-2 record and think it's a pushover. This is going to be a tough matchup come Sunday, and this one they need to dominate. Then after that, they got the Chargers, and you look ahead those 3 weeks after, 4 weeks after the Vikings, Chargers, Cardinals, Broncos, Steelers. Then you got the Bengals after that. But you look at those 4 weeks, it's going to be a 4 weeks that I think tells a lot about Cleveland.
Yeah, very, very much so.
On the other side, it's a tough 4 weeks for Chicago. They have a chance to pick up another win here this weekend against the Lions, but after that, they got the Raiders, Packers, Buccaneers, Niners, Steelers again, and then Ravens. So it's a tough stretch, and they need to turn something around. Andy Dalton still expected to be their starter coming into this week, but both him and Fields nursing injuries. They're expected to practice today, so by the time we hit Friday, I think we'll know who's going to be playing in that game, and it looks like Dalton's still going to be the starter, which I think, after what we just saw from Fields in this offensive line, is okay.
Yeah.
I don't think too. Dalton should be, Fields should be the one out there.
He shouldn't be rushing.
Getting 12 sacks on him,
No, it should be Dalton. Or Foles.
I think you let Dalton be the guy out there because of his experience. He's dealt with the bad offensive line for a while in Cincinnati. He knows how to deal with that, and I think you did see that in their first 2 weeks with Dalton at the helm. It was an offense that, despite the fact they didn't look great, could produce. And you saw that because the experience that the Red Rocket brings in here behind a bad offensive line, he kind of dealt with it a little bit in Dallas last season. He didn't play great when Dak was out. He didn't get a lot of chances because he got pulled pretty quickly because he was abysmal through, 2-3 games that he started in. But you look at that game from Dalton on the season so far, I think you like what you see in Chicago right now. And I think you like that you can let Justin Fields sit behind an experienced quarterback who has dealt with bad offensive line while still having great wide receivers out there. This is a guy that had a bad offensive line, but Joe Mixon next to him and running back, and A.J. Green out wide, Chad Ochocinco out there out wide. He's dealt with some great guys. And he's dealt with a bad offensive line and a bad defense at the same time. So I think Dalton is the right guy to lead Justin Fields into this next era of Chicago football.
I think so, too.
All right. But next game here. We might have to speed through a few of them. Saints, Patriots. Jameis Winston, 13-21, 128 yards, 2 touchdowns in the 28-13 win over Mac Jones, who threw way too many times for a rookie quarterback. I think we've kind of been seeing this, though, from New England. They're trying to throw Mac Jones into the fire quickly. Belichick's, I think, pushing him to really see what they got out of him. It was a close game, so it's one that they felt they had to open the offense up. That's what they did. The 3 picks for Mac Jones is where you want to look at this game and go, well, that's not good. But 270 yards and a touchdown, it's not the best, but when you're throwing it 51 times, 30 of 51, I don't want to say it was a good game for him. I think it was okay, though. It was a game they were trying new things. They opened up the offense, and he had 2 guys that nearly were over 100 yards receiving in this game. So,
yeah, I still gotta go. I mean, I gotta play that card, but he's a rookie, and you throw him into this starting job like that. I mean, honestly, I can see why they let Cam Newton go, but I mean, I don't think they should have done it like that.
I think this is a Patriots team that needs to find the running back that we've been talking about from all these teams.
They do.
Find your running back. I think we're entering a new era of football where you don't just need a running back. You need a good, solid, starting level, elite level running back if you want to be a competitive team. Yeah. We look at our best teams right now in the NFL, and they have a guy that they know they can turn to in big moments. I think that's what every team right now needs to succeed. I think this is the era we're going into. When we're having these big, explosive offenses where the field's getting so stretched out, at some point in your game, you need to play small ball. You need to have that guy that you know on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 3rd and 3 can punch it through and get you a first down. And it has the potential to break it off. You need something that's not an average level running back. Damian Harris, 6 carries for 14 yards. They didn't run the football in this game because they don't have that offensive line they were used to with Tom Brady, and they don't have a running back that they can rely on.
Yeah. So
on the other side of this, you look on the Saints side, Alvin Kamara, 24 carries, 89 yards, boom, perfect, just fine. Taysom Hill, they brought him in 6 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown. They did what they had to. The receiving core is not the same without Michael Thomas. We know that, but depending on when he can come back, I think it'll change this team up. And I think the Saints have really had a great turnaround since that Panthers game to start off the season. That, or not start off the season, but 2 games ago, I think they really turned it around after they get the big win week 1 against the Packers. Then they fall apart on offense the next week. They come back here against the Patriots, and they dominate. They play good football. Once they get Michael Thomas back, this is an offense that I think is going to produce that 38 points a game we saw in that week 1 win over a dreadful Packers.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Tom Brady, we've talked about him a little bit. Finally, the unstoppable looks stoppable, but he still was amazing. 41 of 55. I'll take that. If Brady's throwing it 55 times and he's making 41, I'm going to let him keep throwing it 50 times a game. I know we're talking Big Ben on the other side. It's because he's not making the big plays. It's because nothing's
Brady
happening.
Brady can still make those big plays.
He had 432 yards and a touchdown, and a rushing touchdown for Tom Brady. I mean, I think they need to get more carries for Ronald Jones Jr. in this game, but obviously they were trailing in this game for pretty much the entire thing, so they were trying to push their way back into it. And Stafford was on his stuff again. 27 of 38, 343 yards, 4 touchdowns. Rams are undefeated on the season. Sony Michel, former Brady team back and Patriot, 20 carries, 67 yards. You'll take that from them because they were able to slow the game down when they needed to. Deshaun Jackson and Cooper Kupp combining for 216 yards in 3 touchdowns. Tyler Higbee got a touchdown as well. I mean, the Rams played perfectly in this game.
Deshaun Jackson.
And, the Buccaneers, they played pretty great too, but I think there's more they can do on offense when you're looking ahead because they've looked unstoppable so far in the season until they hit the Rams here. And what some could say potentially their first real test of the season because we still don't know what we're getting out of the Cowboys.
No, you don't. But Deshaun Jackson, a guy that you think is like way past his prime, which he is, but he can't play anymore, that guy can still go out there and play. Like, he is no joke. Like, He can still come out and run routes and catch the ball.
We've obviously been talking about this upcoming game, Buccaneers, Patriots. We'll talk about it a little bit more on Friday's show. But that's just one upcoming. You look ahead, though, at this schedule. This is a fantastic 4-game stretch right now for Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Patriots, Dolphins, Eagles, Bears. A lot of teams that are finding themselves right now and trying to figure out how to play. Dolphins may or may not be, I think, won't be without Tua in that game as well. So it'll be up to Jacoby Brissett, former Tom Brady backup. So, I mean, there's a storyline of its own there for the Jacoby Brissett and the Dolphins. I mean, I think this is a good stretch, though, for the Buccaneers to continue their winning ways. I mean, this is a team that's dominant, but I think these are games they can open up their offense. On the other side, the Rams have a tough game coming up. They're going up against the Cardinals, and what I think some would say probably one of the biggest matchups we've seen of two explosive offenses throughout this season. Cardinals 3-0, Rams 3-0. Someone's got to lose, and we'll preview that game this Friday and talk about that. After that, they got the Seahawks, the Seahawks, the Giants, and the Lions. There's the next three, and I think it's a good stretch right now for the Rams. I mean, we're looking down the road, potential 6-1 team come around trade deadline.
Oh yeah. Wait, go back to their schedule real quick. I just want to see something. Okay, we're good. That'd be funny if they had the Bears in there and the Lions. Lions, Tigers, and Bears. But they played the Bengals, the Lions, and the Bears. The Lions, Tigers, and Bears.
Okay, Matt.
That'd be funny. I just find that funny.
It was a good game, though. I mean,
yeah.
I think we got what we expected out of both sides in that one. But it's one that I think Tom Brady and the running game needs to do more. If Tom Brady was the leading rusher in your game, there's a mistake somewhere.
Yeah.
Tom Brady should not be leading your team in rushing yards. But let's get into the next game here. We got to bust through a few of them. This is our last NFL game that we're talking about here tonight. Packers won at 30-28 over the San Francisco 49ers. Aaron Rodgers did his stuff, 23-33, 261 yards, 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones, 19 carries, 82 yards, a touchdown. Devontae Adams, 132 yards and a touchdown. Valdez-Scantling, 59 yards and a touchdown. Lazard, 42 yards and a touchdown. It was perfect for the Packers. They won it. I mean, it took a tough battle down to the end of it, and, their defense had to play well down the stretch, and they had to do some big things, and, they had to rely on Mason Cassidy in this game for 12 points on 3 field goals, but he did his job. He did what he had to do. They win this game because of it as well, and Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he played a good game. Obviously, the 1 interception, you look at that like, man, if that turns into points, we win the game. But 25 of 40, I think a few too many passes, but they couldn't get Trey Sermon going on the ground very much. 10 carries, 31 yards, and a touchdown for him. But 257 yards and 2 touchdowns for Jimmy G. That's good. Leading wide receiver, you expect it to be Kittle. It was. Deebo Samuel's right behind him. I think Brandon Ayuk needs to get more involved in this offense, though. He's a guy that had a good season last year. He's got a lot of speed, and he's got a lot of upside. If they can figure out how to get him to be his most effective self, it's going to be an integral part of this team making it to the playoffs. Well, that's going to wrap up our NFL segment here, halfway through the show. If you're just tuning in, I'm Alec Byrne, that's Matt Morrison. This is the Casual Sports Podcast. Weekdays 2 to 3 on ysnlive.com. All right, Matt, here in college football, a team that took it to Penn State last week in a 28-20 game in the whiteout of Happy Valley, now hosting the 1-2 Georgia State Panthers, and they nearly get upset. 34-24, Auburn wins this game. I mean, Bo Nix, I think, went out early in this game. He got injured after around the third quarter. TJ Finley came in, 9 of 16, 97 yards and a touchdown. But it took really until this fourth quarter to close this game out because they were trailing. They were trailing, going into halftime here. It was 24-12. Luckily, the defense for Auburn turned this thing around and allowed this offense to stay in the game. No rushing touchdowns from them. Jarquez Hunter, just 62 yards. Bigsby, just 60 yards. I mean, this was an offense that couldn't do anything, frankly. And it took a strong offensive performance. You got the interception by Smoke Monday that was huge in that game. And you go down, Anders Carlson, 14 points from your kicker. In that game, your kicker just won it because he got nearly half the team's points.
I mean, you gotta look at this game. Like, I know Mike's not here, but me, you and I can talk about it a little bit. I mean, I'm not gonna make it too much about Penn State because we're talking about Auburn, but Penn State, they were like, hey, they beat Wisconsin, and now Auburn. Now Wisconsin's unranked, and now Auburn barely beating this team. Like, people are. I mean, you gotta be like, hey, how good is Penn State now? I mean, how good are the teams they played?
Yeah, Penn State's getting thrown up into fourth in the rankings because of a ranked win over Auburn. Auburn's still ranked 22nd despite only winning by 10 to Georgia State. You look at Ohio State, who still beat Tulsa by 20 points, and then went out there and beat Akron by 50 points, and they're falling in the rankings.
Yes.
So where's Auburn's fall? How are they only at 22nd after a loss to Penn State? Granted one possession, but then they can barely hold on against a one-win team in Georgia State. And Georgia State on the season, they lost to Army. They lost to UNC. They beat Charlotte, and now here they lose to Auburn. I mean, it's not a good team. This is an offense that, before this game, had scored 20 points in their win against Charlotte. Before then, only scored 17 against Georgia State and 10 against Army. So now you're even questioning even more Auburn's defense in this game. Awful.
Yeah.
I mean, they stepped up in the second half. They had to. But 21 points allowed in the second quarter.
Yeah, 21 points.
And then you look at Auburn here, and you're like, this is not a good team.
No.
I mean,
they're not.
You look at their schedule, they beat Akron by 50.
Yeah.
You know
Everybody
what?
beats Akron by
right.
50.
It's Akron.
It's Akron.
I'm from Akron. My parents went to Akron. They still suck at football. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mom and Dad and my uncles. Whatever. They still suck at football. You know this. They beat Alabama State. It's an FCS opponent. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Their one big game of the season, they can't pull off, and now here they almost lose to Georgia State. Yeah. This is not a competitive Auburn football team. And the fact that Penn State right now is getting the credit for beating this Auburn squad and giving they beat them by 8. The two big wins for Penn State, Wisconsin, who just got smacked by Notre Dame in that fourth quarter, and the scoreboard looks a lot different than it probably should have been there in the fourth. And then the other win for Penn State goes against this Auburn squad that's barely winning against Georgia State. Yeah.
So
Penn State, I'm not going to lie, they looked good. I'll give them that. They looked good. But the ranking might be a little overrated.
That's a little bit. I mean, that's my team. I love them, but...
We'll see how they fare once from now that we're getting into Big Ten play. And I think it's a good start for them. Obviously, going up against a Big Ten opponent who is ranked preseason, it does change the atmosphere there.
It does. It really does.
You see that ranking preseason, you go, all right, this is a top 25 matchup. Yeah. Both teams are preparing as if they're going to win a national championship that year. What was that, a 16-10 game for Penn State over Wisconsin?
Yes.
So a close one there against a Wisconsin team that we're now finding out has the worst quarterback in Big Ten, in Graham Mertz. He's currently ranked 13th out of 14 quarterbacks, with just Illinois' Brandon Peters sitting at 14th. So it's not a good Wisconsin team in a one-possession game. Your defense is the only reason you're ranked right now in the top 5. I have a feeling, because the offense for Penn State hasn't been fantastic.
No, it hasn't.
I mean, your big game, 16 against Wisconsin, 28 against Auburn, in your whiteout. This is supposed to be their biggest game of the season, right? The moment where, Penn State, they bring the energy, they bring the crowd, the intensity, and they blow out their opponents. They're 7-6 in the whiteout.
Yeah.
Granted, they faced really hard teams. That's why they do it in that. So, you look at that and you're like, well, it does the whiteout really bring that intensity to help you win a football game? Maybe not. But it creates one heck of an atmosphere for TV.
It sure does.
But yeah, back here to Auburn, this is an Auburn team that I don't think deserves a top 25 rating. I mean, I think we need to start looking outside of the Power 5. I mean, I think there's some potential Pac-12 teams, but some ACC teams that might need to deserve that ranking a little bit higher.
I absolutely agree. Because, I mean, if you look at Auburn's schedule coming up, too, I don't think it gets any easier.
No, I mean, they're 3-1. They have a tough matchup in Death Valley against LSU.
And LSU's 3-1.
But you look at the next 4 games. Georgia, Arkansas, Ole Miss, A&M. All 4 of those teams ranked inside the top 15. Granted, I don't think Texas A&M should be.
No.
I'm not sure that's even a top 20 team.
No.
Maybe top 25? Maybe. Because I think they have the defense that proves top 25. They don't have the offense, though.
No.
But you look at Ole Miss. They've been fantastic so far. Arkansas is looking unstoppable. We'll see if they can stop Alabama, because that's the real question. That's the game of the week. Alabama, Arkansas. That's the one you look at. But this Georgia-Auburn game, I think, is going to tell us a lot about the SEC.
Yeah.
These next 2 weeks, next 3 weeks, are going to tell us right now if the SEC is really the number one conference, as it looks like it is, or has it all just been, for show?
Because if Auburn comes out and beats Georgia here,
then it's a completely different story. Then this entire thing gets flipped. Then Penn State looks a lot better.
Yes.
I mean, when we talk about who have you beat, who have you faced, right now, Auburn doesn't look like a good win.
No.
If they go out there and beat Georgia, one, they flip the entire college football committee on top of their head once, we get down to it. They completely change the landscape of college football, and they make the Big Ten look really good, which in turn makes the Pac-12 look good too. A conference that has struggled to look good. And speaking here of the Pac-12, UCLA picked up an 11-point win over Stanford. It was a close game. I mean, we were talking about this one, potential upsets, whatever. UCLA and DTR lived up to it. 18-29 for DTR, 251 yards, 2 touchdowns. Charbonnet, 116 yards and a touchdown for him. Yeah. And on the other side, Stanford couldn't run the ball that effectively, and that's why UCLA won this game. I mean, Kyle Phillips for UCLA had 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, they got their big weapons involved. They did what they needed to, and this is a game I think you look at for UCLA opening up conference play after the loss to Fresno State last week, or the week prior. They open it up with the bang, and now they have Arizona State this weekend in what is, once again, the biggest game of the season for UCLA. And it seems like we're saying that every single week right now for the Bruins. This is your biggest game. You can't afford to lose again. You have to show up right now.
You have to win.
I mean, they need the win against Arizona State, because then they can beat Arizona, a team that's 0-5 and is now hosting mid-season tryouts.
Yes. I think I sent that this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a poor performance, but...
Yeah.
Pac-12, they need UCLA to be good right now. They have a few teams that are looking like, hey, they can make a run right now and potentially give us back that, national recognition that we are striving for. You have Oregon, 4-0, Oregon State, 3-1, Arizona State, 3-1, UCLA, 3-1. What I'm saying, I think we have some teams here in the Pac-12 that should be getting that ranking instead of Auburn. That's what I'm talking about right there. Those teams that are 3-1 right now in the Pac-12. And this UCLA-Arizona State game should be a matchup that we're looking at as a top 10 as a top 15, top 20 matchup. Instead, we're looking at Arizona State, a team that beat Colorado last week 35-13, a Colorado team that held number 15 ranked Texas A&M to a 10-point and a 10-7 win for A&M. This is the team Arizona State blew out of the water, and their only losses to number 13 ranked BYU. That's a top 25 team right there.
That is a top 25 team.
How can you?
If they win this
people
week,
look at this game right now and not say that these are 2 top 20 opponents going at each other? I don't know. A&M and Auburn should not be ranked over Arizona State.
They shouldn't be.
And frankly, maybe not even over UCLA. UCLA's loss was their Fresno State team that we're finding out isn't that bad.
Yeah. UCLA is good. They have great potential, and they would come out and probably blow Auburn and Texas A&M out of the water.
I think they would 100% destroy Texas A&M. I think there's question marks about Auburn and their consistency. Yeah. I think if Auburn has a good game, they win that. I don't think Texas A&M can win that game, though.
No.
A&M should not be ranked 15th, and I think... Arizona State obviously has to win this game to get ranked, and it'll probably drop UCLA out, but it shouldn't, because both these teams should be in the top 20, if not sitting right there at 15 and 16 right next to each other.
I totally agree.
We'll talk about that game coming up. But Michigan State, the Sparties, nearly defeated the Cornhuskers 23-20. It took overtime to decide this one. Martinez, 24-34, 248 yards, 0 touchdowns, and a game-losing interception. Seems like we're saying that storyline over and over for Nebraska, aren't we? Second week, Adrian Martinez has thrown an interception at the biggest point of the game, and it's cost them. Peyton Thorne, really, he looks average. 14-23, 183 yards and a touchdown and an interception. This is a team that relies on the ground game, and Kenneth Walker struggled. 19 carries, just 61 yards. And everyone right now is talking about Adrian Martinez, potentially the best quarterback in the Big Ten right now. I don't see it. I don't care about your yards per game. If you don't score and you can't perform big moments, it doesn't matter.
It does not matter whatsoever. Martinez, I've talked about this before. What you just said that a lot of people were talking about, like he could be,
You go to because right now I think it was from 24/7 Sports. They put out best quarterbacks in the Big Ten, and they had Adrian Martinez ranked at I think like 5, 6, 7, something in there. Which like okay, that's fair. He's putting up the numbers, not the touchdowns, but he's putting up the yards. And you look at in the comment section of that, it's all these people are talking. Oh, Martinez is the best. He's having the best yards per game, best passer rating. Like.
He got overhyped. He got overhyped so quickly.
Well, it's not even that. It's he's putting up yardage and a good passer rating.
Yeah.
But what is he not doing? Scoring the football. I don't care how damn good you are. If you can't score the football, you're not good. What do we talk about in the NFL? It doesn't matter if you put up 500 yards or you put up 130 yards like Jameis Winston. He had 5 touchdowns in that game on 130 yards. That is a good quarterback performance. We're talking about Big Ben, who put up the yardage, but didn't put up the touchdowns as a bad performance. Yeah. This isn't just us talking about college football, trying to bury, Adrian Martinez in Nebraska because they're not good, whatever. No, it's the opposite. We keep it consistent here on this show. We are talking about, hey, you have to perform when it comes down to it. And when you're in the red zone, get a touchdown, or else, frankly, you're not a good quarterback. No. If you can't score when the going gets tough, then you shouldn't be out there.
No, and they have, Northwestern.
Michigan and Minnesota coming up. Minnesota not the same team without Mo Ibrahim, though.
No, but Northwestern, you can't mess around with them.
No.
And then, we know how good Michigan has looked so far.
Michigan might be the team to be reckoned with right now. I don't like saying that.
Me either.
That leaves a sour taste in my mouth.
I think the Rutgers really brought it to them, and we're going to really see how Ohio State can respond with the Rutgers.
We'll see here. We'll talk about that more this weekend potentially. Right.
Rutgers look not half
This
bad.
was a Rutgers team, besides last year, had scored, I think, once against Ohio State, was outscored like 200-7 through their first 4 games in the Big Ten between them. But next game here on the slate, Oklahoma State earned themselves a top 20 ranking. They're now 4-0 on the season after defeating the 3-1 ranked 25th Kansas State Wildcats 31-20. And it all came in the first half for Oklahoma State. They scored 31 in the first half, couldn't get anything in the second. It didn't matter. They held it together. Spencer Sanders, 344 yards, 2 touchdowns on just 22 receptions. Jalen Warren on the ground, 123 yards for the squad. And Devontae Martin, 9 receptions, 100 yards, and a touchdown. This was a great game for Oklahoma State. You look at that first half, they dominated. Then their defense came out and held strong, just allowing 1 touchdown in the second half.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
I like what Oklahoma State did in that ball game. They showed both sides of the ball have worked well, and that's not something we saw in their first 2 weeks, or their first, really, 3 weeks, against a 7-point win against Missouri State, a 5-point win against Tulsa, a 1-point win against Boise. Now they come out against a top 25 opponent and beat them by 11. It's been close, and they had 2 tough matchups coming up. Ranked 21 Baylor, who's 4-0 right now. Then after that, they have a Texas team that just put up 70 points in a game against Texas Tech. So, who knows? But I love that game. You love the offense in the first half, then you love the defense in the second. Both sides of the ball, I think, for both teams played well. I don't think this is a game that Kansas State should be punished for. I think as long as they continue to win, they should be right back there in the top 25 because they lost to a team that's now ranked in the top 20. Yeah. They have 2 really hard games coming up. Ooh. They host Oklahoma, then they host Iowa State. Game. So, we'll see how that progresses here. But let's get down to our headlines here with 11 minutes left in the show. Richard Sherman has signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as they head into Foxborough this weekend. Matt, what do you think about this one?
The guy was like the former leader of the Legion of Boom with the Seattle defense. And he, even with San Francisco, he still put up he still came out and played productively. He still defended everybody.
Leads the NFL in interceptions since 2011 with 36. Next closest, Marcus Peters with 31.
The guy can still, he's getting older, the guy can still play. And he's got that cockiness, too, that goes along with that. That makes him even better. So I think
this was Richard Sherman.
This is a defense with Tampa Bay that's already stacked. So, at him, that's just like a compliment. Right.
Well, you know what? This is what Richard Sherman had to say. He's the all-time great quarterback reaching out. Anytime he makes that call, it's a very difficult opportunity to pass up. And I think we've kind of seen that. Every old guy in the league is getting phone calls from Tom Brady and like, yeah, we're coming down, baby. You kidding me? And this Tampa Bay team, I think, is like leading this charge of veteran guys saying, hey, we're not done yet. Let's go down. Let's form a group together. Let's go take this league by storm again. This is still our time right now. And Tom Brady's showing that. And I think you're almost seeing this wave go into the NBA. You look at the Lakers right now, bringing all these old guys into the town. Hey, like, hey, one last dance. You know, let's go back in here. Let's take this season and show, hey, it doesn't matter that we're 35 to 40 years old, 30 plus everywhere. This is still our league, and we can still dominate just fine. And I think I like what this is showing here in the NFL and the NBA, depending on how the Lakers perform with this older squad, that just because we're getting athletes that are aging, that are older, that are 30 plus, and some would say out of their prime, that they're bad players and that they should be out of the league and that they're washed and they're old and they're injury prone and all these things you want to say about the old guys of the league. At the end of the day, these guys have the most experience and have the most championship experience and know how to play in big moments. And that is what has been leading the charge so far for Tom Brady and this Buccaneers squad. They know how to show up in the biggest of moments, and you saw that last year in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, a team that was dominating everybody. Nobody was even questioning that offensive line until the Super Bowl.
No.
You got to that Super Bowl after Chiefs, Mahomes been putting up, 400 yards a game in the entire playoffs or whatever, and this team was doing whatever they wanted to whoever they wanted, and then Tampa Bay comes in there with all these old guys mixed in with a few young guys, and Vita Vea and JPP go off in that game and just leave Mahomes begging for mercy back there. This is a team that is resetting what we think of older players in the NFL. That's my case there. How about this one, though?
Oh, man.
The Cardinals have won 17 straight. They clinched the wild card and will face either the Dodgers or the Giants, whoever wins the NL West. And in that matchup, Giants currently 2 games ahead of the Dodgers, 103 wins, tying the all-time highest for the Giants. Dodgers at 101, looking to take it here in the final stages. Before we talk about the Cardinals, final stretch of the season, it's a tough one for the Dodgers. 2 games here against the Padres. They took the first one yesterday, and then they'll finish off the game 3 straight against the Brewers, all 5 games at home. So a good chance right now for the Dodgers. On the flip side, Giants, they're standing with 103. They have back-to-back games here against the Diamondbacks before then finishing their season out against the Padres. So now we're talking Padres can set up who goes to the NL West, who wins the NL West, and who's in the wild card series. But back here to the Cardinals at 88 and 69. They're not going to get the NL Central title, but they will have to face the Brewers here in their final, or in 2 of their final 5 games. They beat them yesterday 6-2, and they right now have a chance to enter the postseason tied with Cleveland for most consecutive wins. 17
wins.
Currently for the Cardinals. Their final 5 games. Today against the Brewers at 7:45. Tomorrow against the Brewers at 1:15. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they have the Cubs. The Cubs are winnable. But right now, you look at these Brewers games, you're like, this is what you're looking at.
And during the streak, they have beaten the Brewers and the Cubs already in series. So, I know it'll be a little harder to do it again, but they've done it already. You got to go look back. We talked about this before. They weren't in playoff contention. Before 22 games, or 17 games ago, they were 71 and 69. That's around the area where Cleveland is right now, sort of. And then boom, they go on a hot streak to finish the year, and we talked about that push. Like teams can do that and then end up making the playoffs. And that's what they did.
And now they're put together 17 straight though. That's where I think a lot of people are going to get stuck in.
Now they're 88 and 69.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but then you look at the Brewers, everybody knows it's a great team. They're obviously first place in the NL Central.
Yep.
But you almost wonder, they have it clinched. Do they rest their guys, give these 2 easy wins to the Cardinals? They don't care if the Cardinals win at this point. It does not matter to the Brewers right now.
No.
They have their spot. They don't need injuries. They're going to have a good game here in the playoffs. And, we can see what happens there. And they're going to be the second best team in terms of standings coming into the playoffs, with either the Giants or the Dodgers taking first place in the NL West. The NL East, the only one not wrapped up, because the Braves and the Phillies sit just 3.5 games apart here coming down the final stretch. But you look at the Cubs, it's in St. Louis. a team that's now 28-48 on the road for Chicago.
Man.
And we're looking right now a very serious potential to tie that record going in to a one-card wild game against the two best teams in baseball. Literally, we're talking right now. The Cardinals, in order to break Cleveland's 22-game win streak, will have to either beat the Dodgers or the Giants.
And continue in the playoffs.
Right. Well, no, they just need to... I mean, yes. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the playoffs is what they're looking at.
Yeah.
From here on out, I mean, I think the Cardinals are saying, let's just win every time. Let's not lose our streak. You take that streak into the playoffs, and you're looking at a good thing. Last time the Cardinals took the Dodgers, they split the series 2 apiece. First 2 games of that series went to the Dodgers 5-1, 7-2. Second 2 went to the Cardinals 5-4, 2-1. So, I mean... This is a dangerous set. I mean, that was all the way back in September, though. Or start of this month.
I'm not ashamed of this at all. I mean, streaks are meant to be broken.
That it is.
So, like, I mean, still, we're still going to be up there. 22-game win streak. Like, we did it too, you know. So, another team is going to tie or get a 1 win higher. You know, great for them. You know, we did our streak. We did good. You know, and that's all you got to look at. Like, hey, we did it too. You know, we were the first ones to do it.
Yeah, I mean, they're right there next to it.
Yeah.
But we might talk some more baseball tomorrow, and obviously we'll get down into it once we reach these final 5 games. And I think everyone's eye is going to be on St. Louis, and we'll talk about that on the Monday coming up, whether they tie that and who they're going to face come playoff time. Yeah. And we'll start making our playoff predictions here shortly once we get Mike back on the show.
Man, I can't wait.
Right. Final 4 minutes here. We talked about this a few days ago rather quickly. The college football playoff set potentially, this is all potentially, don't take this, that it is happening. If they were to expand the playoffs by 2024 to the expected 12-team format, it will have to be approved in the next 4 months. Yeah. If it's not approved in the next 4 months, they then have the next 3 years to make it, and it wouldn't start till 2025. Wow. That is because of the exclusive streaming rights by ESPN. It's getting down to this whole shenanigan of stuff to make this thing happen. But the 12-team plan was unveiled in June. An 8-team playoff is still on the table. All 10 conference directors and Notre Dame's athletic director are all meeting in these very long 4-hour meetings every day this week and last week to try and get this thing done. It's a very complex situation. But what do you think of a 12-team playoff instead of 8, like everyone's been saying? Now you go 12, every conference can have a guaranteed slot in.
Absolutely.
And then you have 2 at large.
It makes it more competitive and, you know, I mean, more risk on the table. You know, Alabama has to win, 3-4 games in a row against these teams that are in the playoff, so you know that they have that ability to win. I mean, it's a possibility to see upsets. Oh yeah, I want to.
We're going from a season that's now becoming 15 games long.
We can see Penn State and Ohio State in the playoff.
But that's what I'm saying here. That this is now a chance that we're looking at a season that's become 15 games with the 2 extra games at the end of the season instead of 14 like it used to, going into one that's potentially 16, 17 games long. And I think that helps out guys that are looking at the NFL right now. And it's also giving meaningful football to the group of 5 and giving them legitimacy coming down into the playoffs, because we haven't seen them get the chance so far in the playoffs. If we are to make this a thing and give the group of 5 teams a chance, I think it's not going to be called group of 5 anymore. This is going to just be the FBS. We're still going to have our dominant conferences, Big Ten, ACC, Pac-12, and the SEC. But the Big 12 is a group that's slipping, especially with the losses that they're about to face. The American, obviously on the up and up, about to lose a few guys as well. But this is a great thing for college football. And obviously we have to run through this one quickly once again. But that's going to do it here for a hump day of the Casual Sports Podcast. It's Wednesday, September 29th. We'll see y'all tomorrow. I'm Alec. That's Matt. Peace out.